Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the final segment of Fate Magazine. Goodness gracious, Fate Magazine Radio. I'm Kat Hobson with my guest, Lee Harris, and we have been discussing things found in his brand new book. It just came out the 26th. It's called Energy Speaks. And Lee, can you tell people where they can find you? I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way prior to continuing our discussion, so you're not rushing.
Yes. Yeah. So my website is leeharrisenergy.com. And if you go to the website, you'll see the book, you'll see my monthly energy updates, and you'll also see a free abundance package gift on the homepage, which is a PDF article that I wrote called Surrender to Abundance, and an audio recording that is called Activate Your Abundance.
Both of which are fabulous. Just saying.
Thank you.
Terrific. Well, you know, we were talking about all the things. We were talking about sleep. We were talking about resetting your focus, your plans for the day, in order to kind of let your brain know where you want your reset to head.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about maybe applying, well, in the break we were talking about perhaps doing boundary setting with that as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, something that I found that I really liked that actually could maybe help with boundaries is the realization that there's, and this is quoting you, there's not a bad, quote, person in the world. Scary, right? Why? Because that changes everything. Because you have to, you know, that's the end of your quote, but that means that you have to accept that maybe that person is not the issue.
Yes, so that came through the Z's and who I channel my guides, and I think that is challenging for us. I certainly know
it is challenging.
What
if you just don't want to like them?
Well, yeah, or also I think I completely understand and know the truth of the message, and I also see how problematic that message can be when we try and apply it to big events in the world or actions that people have taken that have caused great destruction. So, but I think the message is more about the compassionate part of ourselves that can see that everything is energy, everything is an experience. It invites you to lean into that a bit more. And what I've found is when I get out of right and wrong and black and white, and I see things from a wider perspective, my heart opens again. I've always noticed that whenever I'm being judgmental, my heart isn't very present. And
Correct.
What I do believe is that I don't believe anybody with an open heart willfully creates destruction, or shall we say replays wounds. So if you look at, we'll just take him as an example, not because he needs more airtime right now, but President Trump in America, the wounds in his psyche and emotional body are being played out upon others. So what we do know is that when someone is no longer acting from trauma or wounding and acting destructively towards others or towards themselves, they get back to their heart and they get back to an openness. And so that, to me, is really what the crux of not just that sentence, but that whole chapter is inviting you to do. It's inviting you to open beyond limited thinking and, more importantly, limited feeling, because limited feeling leads to limited thinking. If I don't feel very open-hearted toward you, Kat, my thoughts aren't going to be very nice toward you. And if I'm someone who gets behind my thoughts, then I could do things that are destructive. So, if someone has a thought of, I'm going to push them down the stairs, and then they act on that, then basically their jealousy or rage or bitterness towards a person has led them to a thought that they have then acted upon in a destructive way. So that to me is the kind of origin of that sentence and what it leads us back to. It leads us back to having a more open heart and a more open perspective in our lives.
Exactly. Because you have to move past that trauma. You can't live in trauma daily.
No, and I think the
It's
gift of someone like a President Trump is the gift of someone like him is he's raised the trauma to the surface. It's no coincidence that the Me Too era and so many other movements around abuse and or marginalized people have risen to the surface when a figurehead like that is put into a powerful position.
well, I will agree with that because you know what? It actually enabled people to be able to take ownership of their situation and be
Well,
strong enough
yeah,
to say, you know what? This happened to me and it is not okay.
and be
Granted, it
triggered.
turned into a lot of false accusations as well, or perceived faults, and it became rather like the McCarthy hearings during the old wars, but bad actors were being called out because people were empowered and they took that by the reins and went with it. So,
Well, and I think beyond, who did what and those kinds of things, what's more true is the fact that we have these issues.
yes,
Whether you believe someone's story or not, the very fact that this is even taking place as a conversation tells you it's taking place as a reality.
yes.
So I think that's the kind of
And the,
disempowerment healing that's up right now.
yes. And as someone who is Me Too, it was just, it is empowering
Yes.
because I had different, familial and work environment situations that was the reality of. And didn't speak to them because I was a single parent with 3 children
Hmm.
and I needed my job, which paid very well. And the other because it was not something that would have been believed.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult. I was young, right? And I was the one when I did come forward with something, I was called an incorrigible youth.
Hmm.
So I couldn't possibly be speaking truth, right? So you're
Hmm.
right. It is what gave people power. In my opinion, people felt justified and felt that other people are speaking out. Sometimes you need a leader to come forward and say, this is wrong.
Hmm.
So it's very empowering.
And sometimes as uncomfortable as it is to be triggered by what you're seeing in the outside world, it takes that
Mm-hmm.
to let it come out of your own body and your own voice. So, and just you mentioned you and your own Me Too experience. I was shocked when I started. I did personal sessions, private readings for 15 years, and I finished at the end of last year, actually. I couldn't believe how many people I met who had had some kind of rape or sexual abuse experience. And the same with so many of my female friends. I've always had far more female friends than male friends. I couldn't believe how many of them had either had a rape or something close to a rape. And yet, we really haven't spoken about this as a society in an overt way. And so I think the discomfort of the Me Too movement is necessary. Someone said
Yes.
to me, "Oh, well, I feel sorry for men because now they're all uncomfortable." And I'm like, "Well, women have been uncomfortable for years. So, if we as men have to be a bit uncomfortable, that's okay." And I even notice it myself. I'm married to a man. So I know I'm no threat to women, yet I will see a woman on the street, and if I occasionally smile at her, I can tell when she lowers her eyes and looks away because she doesn't know if she's safe with me.
Right.
And I totally respect that. I get it, even though that's not where I'm coming from. I know that women all over the world, and certainly in some cultures, my God, have to live with that. So seeing that that is under the microscope right now and that that is beginning to change is really important. And of course, like anything, it will take time, but it's really needed because it's an area of disempowerment in our society that it affects men and women. And I don't just mean men are the victims, I mean for men to be in the position of being the perpetrators is not good
Yes.
for them either, because
You're
that
right.
comes from a wound.
Yes.
So there is a real need for healing around this, and I'm really glad to see it becoming such a global conversation.
And it's astounding, isn't it? That it actually managed to occur. That
It isn't
people
it is in some ways, but it isn't in others. Like I feel like this is the gift of this time. Sure, things are messy, things are uncomfortable. Certain world structures that used to hold us are wobbling. But because of that, and in tandem with that, there are energetic truths and energetic blocks becoming unblocked and rising to the surface. So I do think this is an uncomfortable time to be alive. And I think it's an exciting and enlivening time to be alive, depending on, depending on the day, depending on the moment. I certainly know for
That's
myself, even
true.
just this last 3 weeks, there's been so much life force energy for me. And there have also been some real healing movements, deep and quick. But I think that's very much the measure of the times that we're in.
I would agree. I am so glad you have been here. I really hope we can work it out for you to come back because I've enjoyed you.
It's been lovely to talk to you, and it has gone so quickly. So
I
thank you so
know.
much for having me on the show, and thank you so much that you've enjoyed the book. This week has been special to me because we worked on this book for 2 years, and it's been really 15 years in the making. So for
Hmm.
me, seeing how people are responding to it, and especially people like yourself who have seen lots of this kind of material, and you've known me for many years, it means the world to me.
Well, you've, this is going to sound so sappy, but you truly have affected my life.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I can't think of anything that would be better than to know that you were able to have that input. So everybody wants to be able to do that for the positive. And you're doing it. You're doing it for thousands of people. And
Well,
I think that's very special.
that means the world, and I'm glad, especially as you're someone who is doing your own thing in the arena, as they would call it. So, my big philosophy is I love contributing to things that help people because I could give you a long list of things that have helped me, whether it's my favorite musicians, my favorite books, my
So
favorite
true.
friends, so to me it's a real pleasure to be able to contribute to what I call the wheel, the wheel of support and inspiration and healing that we all take from. So no, thank you for saying that, and that spurs me on. Thank you.
Well, just keep spinning when it's your turn to go by.
Absolutely. And you too,
So,
my friend.
thank you, Lee. And that being said, this has been an absolutely wonderful show. Two fabulous guests. I hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I have because I have had a ball. And I will see you Wednesday. I'm paranormal experienced, and y'all can just go ahead and start swooning now because frankly will be joining me. We will be discussing some theories that we have espoused over the years, and he has had one of his proven scientifically this month. So he's all giddy with excitement. So we'll get to have fun. We are going to be very scientific, so bring your notebooks. You got to have them when he's on. And